Hey everybody, it's Rykard here again, back with another black and white Pokemon analysis. Today we're going to be taking a look at the cavalry Pokemon known as Shubarugo. So let's get started by viewing its typing, abilities, and stats. So first, you will notice that this Pokemon sports the Bug Steel typing, similar to Fortress and Scissor and a whole slew of new Pokemon introduced into Gen 5. And while this typing does have really good resistances, it unfortunately has a 4 times weakness to fire, so always be on the lookout for a potential fire attacker or a hidden power that could be the fire type. As for the abilities, the first one it gets is Swarm, which is an ability that increases the power of bug type moves when you're at a third of your health or less. As for its next ability, it's known as Shell Armor, and what this does is it prevents critical hits from occurring. So this can actually be a very useful ability if you want this Pokemon to be a defensive kind of Pokemon, since Shell Armor will prevent any random crits from happening, thus ruining your ability to wall attacks. As for its last ability, which it gets in the Germ Mold, it is known as Dustproof, and what that does is it prevents you from being hurt by any weather effects, meaning sandstorm or hail. But since this Pokemon is already a Steel type, it's immune to sandstorm anyways. So really, Dustproof will only be useful if you don't want to take damage from hail, but even then, hail still isn't that common, so I would probably consider this to be one of its most useless abilities that it gets. As for its stats, it only has 70 HP, however it has 105 defense and 105 special defense, meaning that it will be able to take a ton of attacks from either the special or physical side, depending on where you want to put the EVs. But this Pokemon can be very defensive, as you can see by these stats. As for its attack, it has a 135 base attack, which is ridiculous. So it's basically the same attack power as Metagross, if you want to think of it that way. But this will allow this Pokemon to do massive amounts of physical damage, because it's so high. As for its special attack, though, it's significantly less than the physical attack, so you're probably not going to be wanting to be using a special attacking set. And lastly, its speed is an unfortunate 20, meaning that it won't be outspeeding a lot of different things, but it can still be a very, very effective Pokemon if you want to use it in a Trick Room. But with that, let's take a look at a couple of different sets that this Pokemon can make use of. So for this first set, it's going to be basically a pretty standard defensive set. So we're going to give Shubarugo a Careful Nature to increase its special defense but decrease its special attack. And then we're going to be using the ability Shell Armor so that critical hits cannot happen against us. As for the EVs, we're going to put 252 EVs into HP to max out your HP, 4 for attack to give you 1 more attack point, and then 252 EVs for special defense to give you your max special defense possible with the extra special defense you get from a Careful Nature. And for the item, we're going to be using Leftovers. As for the moveset, since we are going to be special defensively with the EVs and the Nature, we're going to be using the move Iron Defense to make you even more physically defensive. And after 1 Iron Defense, your defense stat will be over 400 with, I think, 339 special defense and max HP. So it makes this Pokemon very capable of taking lots of hits from either the special or physical side, and will allow it to last for a while in battle if your opponent doesn't have a fire-type Pokemon that can easily come in and take this guy out. As for the next move, we're going to be using X-Scissor because that's just a really good stab move that Shubarugo can use, and it has decent power and will still be able to do a lot of damage because your base attack stat is so freaking high. As for the next move, we're going to be using Toxic so that we have the chance to wear down your opponent as you're hopefully successfully walling them because of your ridiculously high defenses, and your ability to use 2 stab moves, X-Scissor, and then Iron Head, which is another great move and does have a chance to flinch, but since Shubarugo's speed is pretty bad, that's probably never going to happen with this Pokemon. But other than that, this is just a pretty basic standard defensive set that this Pokemon can make use of to wall physical and special attackers that could potentially threaten other people on your team. As for this next set, it's going to be Shubarugo's variation on the first video I ever posted in this channel. So first we're going to give him an impish nature to increase its physical defense but decrease its special attack. And again, we're going to be using the ability Shell Armor to prevent critical hits from ever occurring. As for the EVs, we're going to be using 252 EVs for HP, which will give you your max HP similar to the first set, and then also 4 EVs for attack to give you one more attack point. And then the rest, or the remainder of the EVs, are going into physical defense instead of special defense, so you can have your max physical defense possible plus the impish nature. And again, we're going to be using leftovers. So the moveset for this set is going to utilize Screech first, which will lower your opponent's defense by 2 stages. Now this does 2 things. First, it makes them significantly weaker to physical attack moves because their defense has been dropped, and it might also encourage them to want to switch, since having lowered defense against a Pokemon like this who has ridiculous physical attack is never a good thing. So when they try and switch out, or hopefully switch out, you can easily hit them with a Pursuit that will have 80 base power, and it will be doing a lot more damage since you got the Screech off on them. As for the next move, you can either choose 2 options. X-Scissor is there so that you can have another attacking move, so this Pokemon really isn't like a one-trick pony, so to speak. But also, you could utilize Swagger, because what that does is it increases your opponent's physical attack by 2 stages and confuses them. And if you don't know how confusion works, basically it takes your attack stat and your defense stat and factors in how much damage you take when you hit yourself in confusion. I don't know the exact formula for it, but that's how it works. And so if you have increased attack, you'll do more damage to yourself when you hit yourself in confusion. And if you have increased attack and then you use Screech, you have increased attack and decreased defense, meaning you will take a ton of damage from yourself, the opponent will take a ton of damage when it hits itself in confusion, which is amazing because you can just sit there and watch it kill itself. And as for the last move, we're going to be using Rest because that is Shubarugo's only reliable recovery move, which is unfortunate. I wish it learned something else, but it's still really good because it removes any status and will always get you back to full health. Now this last set is designed to allow Shubarugo to do as much physical damage as possible. So first we're going to give it a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but decrease its special attack, and then this time we're going to be using the ability Swarm so that if we're ever hit below 1/3 of our health, we'll have that 1.5 attack boost on your bug type move. As for the EVs, 4 going into HP to give you 1 more hit point, 252 are going into attack to give you your max attack possible with the Jolly Nature, and then 252 EVs are going into speed to give you your max speed possible. As for the item, we're still going to be using leftovers even though this is a more physically based set, but since you still have really good defenses, leftovers can always come in handy and might make your opponent think that you are a more bulkier set and underestimate the fact that you are actually extremely physically powerful. Another option could be using an Aqua Berry, which is a berry that reduces the damage of super effective fire type moves. And since this Pokemon is obviously 4 times weak to fire, and that's its only weakness, having an Aqua Berry can help it survive if you are brave enough to stay in against a fire move, if you're in a situation where you could potentially take out your opponent if they don't take you out. But as for the moveset, the first move we're going to use is Scary Face, which is a move that lowers your opponent's speed by 2 stages, meaning that it cuts it in half. And since Shubarugo has pretty bad speed, only maxing out at I believe 152, any Pokemon that has 305 speed or higher will outspeed it even after a Scary Face. But any Pokemon that has, I believe, an 87 or lower or something around that area as their base speed stat will be outsped by this Pokemon after a Scary Face if it isn't holding a Choice Scarf. So that means that a Pokemon like Shandera, who seems like an obvious counter to Shubarugo because of its really powerful fire type moves, could easily be taken out by your next move, Feint Attack, after a scary face if it isn't scarfed. So that's really useful to have and will probably be very surprising to that Pokemon. As to the next move, we're going to be using Mega Horn because that's obviously the most powerful bug type move, and this Pokemon learns it and gets stabbed from it, and it will be boosted by Swarm if you have the HP to get the boost. And lastly, we're going to be using the move Return so that we can deal a lot of damage to things that Feint Attack and Mega Horn cannot deal super effective or neutral damage to. The only type that completely resists this set is anything that's a steel type, which is unfortunate, but steel types obviously resist everything, so no big deal. But that's pretty much it for Shubarugo. This Pokemon is essentially what you get when you combine massive attack with massive defenses, so it can be very powerful or very defensive, whichever way you want to EV train it and give it a nature or whatever. So this is probably one of my favorite new Pokemon in the generation, and I hope you guys like it a lot too. But that's it for this video, so I will see you guys next time I post. So take care, and goodbye.